Hello, happy Tuesday, and welcome to this episode of the Flow with the Grow podcast. Just like the title says, we're going to talk about what to do when it comes to fitness, your workouts, if you are just starting. And let's say you're at the point where you've been getting more steps in, moving your body more, you've been taking more walks, and you want to take it up a notch. You want to learn how to lift weights. You want to be able to do a squat or a deadlift or do different exercises, different movements to build strength, to build muscle, to maybe lose body fat and do something other than walking or maybe even any other form of cardio that you've been doing. Before I get into this, I just wanted to share something that I have created. It is a free Facebook group called the Food Freedom and Muscle Building Solutions Community. And this is a place where I kind of dive deeper into helping you build a better relationship, healthier relationship with food, with exercise, with your body. Also teaching different tactics and ways to eat healthier, I guess when it comes to working out. And I'm going to be more specifically diving into the fitness side of things coming up. So if you just want a group of like-minded individuals, of a place where you can gather information, get inspiration, be on the side of social media where we do not fear food, or I'm trying to help people to not fear food, and to be able to reach your goals, whether it is losing weight, losing body fat, gaining muscle, toning, whatever they may be, but without having to restrict or give up your favorite foods or feel like you are on this strict dieting program, or you've been yo-yo dieting and you want to get out of that and do it in a way that feels good. And to help you unlearn what diet culture has probably taught you growing up, to help you love your body more, to help you find freedom in the way that you eat, the way that you exercise, and in the way that you live life. So I will link that in the show notes if you would like to join. Again, it is free, and I'd love to have you in there. All right, let's get started into today's topic. First of all, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to working out, I want you to think about building your fitness just as you would go about building a house. When we're building a house, or any building for that matter, a solid foundation has to be put in place. Like, we have to have a ground zero. It has to be stable. It has to be strong before we add on the next level or the next floor, the second floor, the third floor. The same is true with our bodies. If we do not have a strong foundation when it comes to exercise, when it comes to movements, if it's not stable, if it's not laid out in the correct way, then that will cause a lot of damage, long-term damage, injuries, pain. We cannot build on top of improper movement patterns. So we have to build proper movement patterns from the very beginning. And this has to be, like I said, our ground zero, our foundation. I'm going to share with you the exercises that you can get started with in order to help you build that strong, solid foundation. These are exercises that you can do at home, the gym, really anywhere, because they require little to no equipment. Most of them will just be body weight, in fact. And to help you out just a little bit further, a little bit more, I'm going to, in the show notes, put a link to a video demonstration for each of these exercises. So that way you can see them. And I even talk through some of them a little bit to kind of give you different cues. And of course, there's always the unlimited amounts of videos on YouTube and even TikTok and Instagram, maybe even Facebook. So if you need to look any of these up, I would encourage you to do some of the research, do some of your own research to learn more, so that way you can do these just a little bit better. And these are all going to focus on major muscle groups and movement patterns that are basically the foundation to a whole lot of other exercises that you can do in the future. Like, this is laying the foundation for advancing into and onto that next level eventually. Like, if you don't get these movement patterns down, then it's going to make doing the next level a little bit harder, or maybe you won't realize it. And then in the future, you will have an injury or maybe some pain, things like that. So really get these down. And I want you to focus on the word practice. Practice these, and in your mind, try to perfect the exercise as much as possible. I really preach trying to slow it down, not rushing the movements, and trying to connect your mind to the muscles that you're using, trying to connect your mind to your body. And also just keeping in mind that you are quite literally creating new pathways in your brain, and that's going to take time to be able to build that brain pathway, especially if this is new to you and you've never done these movements before. It's going to take time. It's going to take practice. It's going to take maybe having some frustration with yourself. But the more you do it, the more you're going to build these new neural pathways, and it'll eventually become second nature. And no matter if you are just beginning, like this is day one, or you've kind of done some of these before, kind of not, you're kind of getting back into it, you can definitely benefit from doing these as the workout, whether it's home or the gym, or just something that you can kind of go back to every now and then to, again, focus on that form, focus on perfecting the movement and seeing how you can do it just a little bit better. Okay, number 1, the squat. So I always recommend starting with a box squat. Now the box could be a chair, your bed, a couch. Okay, so something that isn't too high, but it's also not too short to where you can't stand back up. I always start seated on whatever the box is, and then getting my feet set, making sure that your heels are planted to the ground, your toes are facing forward, and then sitting up nice and tall, pulling my core in. So I'm bracing my core, placing my hands. I just kind of hold my hands together in the middle, and then I simply stand. Now from there, I sit. So it's just like to start with, just as simple as standing and then sitting. Now take it a step further. Every time you sit, making sure to not lose tension in your quads, in your glutes, in your legs, in your core. Like you are just not, I don't want you to rest your body completely. So we're always keeping tension there. Now you're going to do 15 to 20 reps of these. And I want you to focus again on going slow on the way down. You sit, you keep tension in your legs, and then stand. This is going to help teach you the movement of the squat movement pattern. A lot of times I've had people come, whether I'm working with them one-on-one in person or virtually, they struggle with keeping their heels down. Maybe their knees go in. They just can't get the movement of sitting their butt back. So this really helps teach your body that movement. Now I mentioned knees going in. This is a very common deviation from the squat movement pattern. So you want to make sure to try and keep your knees in line with your second and third toe. This is where the mind to muscle connection kind of comes in, and with being more aware of your body. Because if you notice your knees going in and maybe you video yourself, then you can really think about, okay, pressing your knees out and making sure that they don't go inward. Exercise, or I will sometimes say movement pattern, they are synonymous in today's topic, but movement pattern number 2, a push-up. Now, I would recommend doing an elevated push-up, again, especially if you are just starting out, you are a beginner. I still do these even though I've been doing push-ups for a long time. I've been working out for most of my life, but I still struggle with these. And also I still just like doing the incline push-ups. I can still challenge myself that way and get that movement pattern down. So again, you can use your countertop, you can use a table, you can use maybe a side of the stair on the staircase, you could use your couch and ottoman, the bedside, but making sure that your hands are planted and on that surface, and then not letting your elbows flare out to the side too much. It's also a very common thing that I see, and to help protect the shoulders, I want you to be able to move your elbows inward towards your armpit just a little bit so they're at about a 45-degree angle, and then your heels will be up off the ground. So don't think that your heels need to be on the ground because you're going to be on your toes, and you're going to bring your whole body. So your body is like a surfboard. It's stiff, your core is tight, your whole body is going to move towards that edge of the surface that your hands are on. Your chest is going to be going to the edge of that surface, and then you're going to push that surface away. Common things that I see are people arch their back inward, or they dip their hips too much, or their tailbone is up to the sky. So just make sure to tuck your pelvis. Again, keeping that core tight. We got a surfboard body, and you're bringing your whole body down to that surface. Again, doing 15 to 20 reps, but also just doing as many as you can with good form. Because let's be honest, 15, 20 reps is a lot, even for an incline push-up. And if you don't get to 15, that's okay. Just do your best until you hit that failure with the form. and having correct form. One other thing to note is when you are pushing away, you don't want to round your shoulders forward at any point. So when you're in that elevated plank position to start, shoulders are away from your ears, and think about bringing your shoulder blades together. So we are retracting those shoulders. And then you're maintaining that throughout the push-up when you go down, and then again when you press, so that way you are not overextending your shoulders. And you can really focus on squeezing your chest at the top every time. Next is going to be the hip hinge movement. One of probably the toughest movements that people struggle with. But it is a very important movement pattern to get down. Not that the others aren't, but this is like the beginning movement for a whole lot of other exercises and lifts and things that you will likely do in the future. So getting this one down is very important. So with the hip hinge, you are hinging from your hips. You have a slight bend in your knees. Your feet are about hip or shoulder width apart. I like to place my hands on my hips and roll my shoulders back. Shoulders are down, away from my ears. And then keeping a slight bend in your knees, but not moving your knees too much throughout this. Like your knees stay in one spot as you're doing this hinge. The movement comes from your hips. You can either think about bringing your tailbone to the sky as you're doing this, or you can also think about like there's a door behind you and you got to shut it closed with your butt. You also want to be mindful to keep your eyes down to the ground. Keep your chin tucked so that way your head, neck, and spine are all in alignment. You should start to feel this in the back of your legs, so in your hamstrings. When you start to feel that stretch in your hamstrings, that's where you stop and then come back to that standing position. Once you start to go too far, you actually start to use your back. So we want to make sure that you're not using your back. So you're going to hinge from your hips. Again, feel that stretch in the back of your legs and your hamstrings. Your back should be flat. A common deviation that I see is that backs become rounded. So that is where it's important to think about tailbone to the sky, chest forward, shoulders back, and keep that core braced. Another option that you can do for this to kind of work on the movement from your hips is to do a lying floor bridge. So I'm on my back, my feet are down to the ground, and then I lift my hips, not as high as I can. I don't want an overarching back, but I keep my spine in alignment. I keep that spine straight. And it's just a small movement. I bring my hips up, I squeeze my butt at the top, hold a few seconds, and then I come back down. But again, you should not be going as high as you can in that bridge position when your hips are in the air. When you do that bridge, you can also think about not only squeezing your glutes, but also your hamstrings. Again, 15 to 20 reps. So I'm going to say 15 to 20 reps for pretty much all of these because we're trying to build up this movement pattern. We're trying to create repetition to help with stabilization and then eventually muscular endurance as well. All right, the next movement pattern we're going to work on is the lunge. And actually, I would first start you with a split squat. So a split squat is when we have 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, we lunge down, and then we come back up, and our feet stay planted where they're at. So in a typical lunge, our feet are moving, whether it's to the front, to the back, to the side, walking lunges, but in the split squat, your feet stay in one place the entire time. Bonus, if you have access to a TRX strap, then you can use that for assistance, and that usually helps and makes a tremendous difference when trying to learn this movement pattern. But if you need to, you can also use a chair or the wall or a table, like something that's sturdy that you can hold on to for balance if you need to. We want to make sure that we have a good amount of space in between our front and back leg. They're kind of staggered a little bit, so they're not like super in line with each other. Your back heel comes off the ground. When you lunge down, your front heel stays on the ground. We have a vertical shin in that front leg, 90 degrees in the front and back leg. Now there's different variations that we can do with this, and maybe you've seen that before if you've been into like looking things up or on social media, whatever. But for this purpose, I want you to try and just keep that 90 degrees in the front and back leg to get this movement pattern down. Again, with all of these, keeping that core tight. The fifth exercise is a plank. Now, there's many different ways to do a plank, but I would encourage and recommend that you do a low plank, so a plank from your elbows. This can also be done elevated if you have the means to do that, if you can elevate your elbows on a surface, on a stable surface. And again, bringing back that surfboard body concept. Keeping that core tight, tucking your pelvis in so that your butt isn't up to the sky and you don't have a low back arch. And you should feel this in your core. You should not feel this in your back. You can always drop to your knees if you need to, but just holding that position as tightly as you can. And if you're doing it with maximal tension, you should only be able to hold it for anywhere from only 10 to 30 seconds. So we're squeezing our core, squeezing our glutes, like everything throughout our body is tight. And number 6, this is more for posterior core and also to help with posture and with your upper back. And that is a prone Cobra. Big fan of this one. You're lying on your stomach. You're going to make sure to keep your toes down, your thumbs to the sky. But when you do this, you don't want your shoulders to roll forward. You want them to roll back. So shoulders are away from your ears again, and you're going to lift up, not as high as you can necessarily, just slightly off the ground. And then you're going to lift your arms up and then bring them as close together as possible. So now you should be feeling this in your upper back and just holding for about 10 seconds. Take about a 10 to 15 second rest and then do that again. And that's it. This can be the workout. Again, 15 to 20 reps, doing as many sets as you want. You can go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and do that either 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. I would recommend 3 rounds, but also just kind of depends on the time that you have. Once you're feeling good and comfortable with the form, with doing body weight, then you can definitely add a dumbbell, add a weight, hold something to help create just a little bit more resistance, and then work on that from there as well. Now, it seems kind of simple. It seems kind of boring, but the boring work in fitness works. And like I said in the beginning and throughout this, we have to make sure to build proper movement patterns so that way we can build off of that. We have to build a strong, solid foundation from ground zero so that way we can successfully add on levels and add on floors to our house, our body, and do it in a way that's safe and effective, not just in the now, but also in the future and in the long run. Let's run through these again one more time. Number 1 was that box squat. Once you feel comfortable with that, I don't know if I said this, you can take that box or chair or couch or bed or whatever away and work on a body weight squat from there. Number 2, push up. And you can do this at an incline. Number 3, the hip hinge. Number 4, a static lunge, or also known as a split squat. And number 5, a plank, a low plank, which also can be done elevated. And then number 6, prone Cobra. Again, check the notes for the links to the videos. And as always, if you have any questions on these, or even if you want me to take a look at your form, just shoot me a message. I'm on Instagram at Sophia_Dawn41. So that's SOPHIA_DAWN41. I'd be happy to take a look and help you out, give you some pointers, give you some other cues, let you know what you could fix, what you're doing well, what you could do better, and then we can go from there. Thank you so much for being here, for joining, for listening. I hope this was helpful. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, week, weekend. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Flow with the Grow. I'll see you next week for your daily dose of positivity and growth.